Hey, Booktube Sean here. And today I am going to go through the books I read for the Octofinals of the Booktube Prize. I was a judge for Fiction Group F, and what I'm going to do is, as quickly as I can, go through the six books. I say as quickly as I can because I tend to ramble, and my time that I have available is showing as 33 minutes on my phone to do a video and save a file. So, I'm going to go through the six books I read in the backwards order of how I ranked them. So I'm going to go from six to one, and just tell you a little bit about them and tell you my thoughts on them and why I ranked them where I ranked them, and tell you which ones of the six I read moved on. If you haven't seen the quarterfinals videos yet, so. Book number six, the one I ranked the lowest, and it was a fight for the lowest one, honestly. And I'm going to preface this by saying this group of books, none of them were horrible. Like, I didn't just dislike any of them. Most of them were just fine. So yeah, it wasn't a stellar group for me. I didn't dislike any of them, but I didn't. A couple of them, so maybe more than a couple of them. I actually, if I hadn't been judging them, I probably would have DNF'd them. It just has, like, not bad books, just not really books for me or books that I was into. So the number six book for me, and I actually have a more specific reason for rating this number six that I haven't heard anybody mention yet. This is Middle England by Jonathan Coe. Now, this did move on to the quarterfinals. My problem with this, and I ended up finishing this on audio, so, and that's ended up, if you didn't see my Friday Reads video yesterday, that is how I ended up finishing a lot of the books, and doing a lot of the books was on audio. Like, I bought physical copies for all but one of the books because the first book I read, I had checked out from the library, and I was basically done with it by the time I started buying. But anyway, where I was heading. This is about a group of middle-aged, a small group of middle-aged men and their kids, basically, going through life during the time when the Brexit the Brexit vote was happening. I was trying to look for a specific word there, and it wasn't coming. The story is fine. It's well written. The problem I had with it, one, I ended up ultimately not caring. The story was fine. I don't necessarily need a strong plot. I don't necessarily need a resolution of things. A good story can just be a good story. I actually really like slice of life kind of things, and that's kind of what this is just this slice in their life. My problem, and I probably would have rated this a little higher if I hadn't found out before I started reading it that it is book 3 in Jonathan Coe's Rotters Club trilogy. There are 2 books with these characters before this, and that put me in a bad place right at the start. This book can stand on its own. You don't necessarily need to have read the first 2 books, the Rotters Club, and I can't think of maybe it's here. The Closed Circle, I believe. Yeah, The Closed Circle, I think, is the second book. Rotters Club, The Closed Circle, and then Middle England. But the Rotters Club starts with them like in their teens, I believe, uh, in the late 70s, and then the closed circle picks up with them at the time, like between then and here. And in this, they're in their 50s, I believe. And yeah, like I said, the story was fine. I didn't dislike it. Actually, the audio especially was pleasant to listen to. I didn't mind the story, but I could tell, especially, and I tried to look at this like if I didn't know that this was the third book, would I feel like I was missing something? And I think I would. But because I did know it was a third book, I could definitely tell that these characters, it probably would have explained a feeling I would have had anyway. I feel like I would have felt that these characters were already developed. Um, they make Obviously they'll make reference to things that probably happened in the other two books. They're not big things like if you didn't read the other two books, you can't understand why they bring up. He does a good job at making references to their past relevant and understandable if you hadn't read the first two books. But I just felt like I was missing character development. And that's because I kind of was, because there was two other books of character development, and this is a continuation of their stories. So part of me, and why I ended up ranking it 6, was I had almost already predetermined I was going to rank it 6, because I couldn't, in good conscience, myself, move something on that I knew was the third part in a continuing story. Yeah, so that's why I probably would have ended up ranking it 5 if I hadn't ranked it 6. So I still wouldn't have voted it high enough to move on. Enough people did though, and it did move on. And like I said, it is a fine book. I didn't dislike it. But for me, nothing special, and I felt like I was missing some character development. Book I ranked number 5. This one did not move on. This one is well loved by some booktubers that I follow. So I was excited to read this one, but it is The Man Who Saw Everything, by Deborah Levy. And this is one that if I wasn't reading it for the prize, I probably would have DNF'd it. And it would have been the number 6 instead of Middle England. So that's why these two were kind of close as 5 or 6. This is a guy, I can't remember his name. Saul Adler gets hit by a car crossing Abbey Road. Right after the next day, his girlfriend breaks up with him, and then he goes to Germany just before the collapse of the Berlin Wall. He takes a trip to Germany, and he falls in love with a man over there, and that's kind of the first part of the book. Then the second part of the book, it's hard to explain. The first part of the book is a very almost straightforward story, and then the second part of the book is almost like a fever dream. He becomes an unreliable narrator. We see events again and again. I think he gets hit by a car again crossing Abbey Road, and then the rest of the book is him in the hospital, and the girlfriend he broke up with is there, and he can't keep things in the past, straight in his head. He keeps thinking that he's still back. He'll think he's back in Germany, and it's the way it's written felt almost like it was being avant-garde for the sake of being avant-garde in its style. It got more. I will say it got more. It did get more interesting in the second part of the book. And had I not been reading it for the prize, I would have missed out on that interestingness of the second part of the story. Because I would have DNF'd it in the first part. I was really not that interested in the first half of the book. I just kind of didn't care. And I didn't care that much more in the second part of the book, but it got more interesting with what is actually going on. And then it ended kind of weird, and it's definitely a book for people who like that style. I don't know that I'm one of them. I mean, like I said, the second half of the book was more interesting, and if the first half of the book had been more like the second half of the book, I probably would have possibly. I don't think I would have rated it high enough to go for a move on. I don't think it would have been one of my top 3, but it might have bumped up to 4 if the first half of the book had been as interesting to me as the second half of the book. But that's The Man Who Saw Everything by Deborah Levy. Number 4 is Dominicana by Angie Cruz. This is also one that is long-listed for the Women's Prize. This is about a 15-year-old girl named Anna who weds a 30-something-year-old man to ultimately be able to get her family over to America from the Dominican Republic. Sorry, some of these has been a bit since I read them. I should have done this vlog style so I could talk about them fresher, but I didn't. Definite trigger warnings for spousal abuse in this, and I almost want to say trigger warning for statutory rape. She is married to him. Well, no, there is still a trigger warning for sexual assault. Yeah. But this was a good book. I did enjoy it. I listened to the audio. The audio was pleasant to listen to. The narrator told the story well. I understand why it's been getting some of the praise it's been getting. I think the issue for me, I couldn't get past the 30-something-year-old man wedding the 15-year-old girl. While reading it, you sometimes forget that she's 15, because the book only takes place over the course of maybe a year. So all of these, everything that happens to her while she's 15, maybe 16 years old. So there were things that were hard for me to get past, especially when it came to some of the physical abuse and sexual abuse, and even sexual stuff in general, when we're talking about a 30-something-year-old man and a 15-year-old girl. So that was the struggle for me on this one. It is a good immigrant story. It is well written, but it was the thing for me that I had trouble getting past, and why it ended up kind of being middle of the road for me. Still, if you can get through, if that kind of stuff doesn't, like, the abuse stuff didn't bother me as, that's not a trigger for me, but it kind of bothered me a little bit the whole thing, even the marriage aspect, just the 30-something-year-old man to the 15-year-old girl. That's what kept things weird for me. So the book I rated number 3 was The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is a hard book to explain. A guy finds a book that's got it in the library that has no author, the library doesn't even have record that they have the book. But he checks it out, and in it he finds a story about him in his childhood, when he found a door drawn on a wall and he didn't open it because that door would have taken him to the Starless Sea, but it wasn't apparently time for him to go there yet. So once he becomes obsessed with this book and finding out its origins, which lead him on just a fantasy-filled adventure to the Starless Sea, where it's really hard to explain. It's good. I started this one physically, and then I ended up using up an Audible credit to finish it on audio, just time wise. It's not that I wasn't enjoying reading it physically, but I did actually end up enjoying it on audio more. This is actually one that if I hadn't been listening to it, it might have taken me forever to finish physically. There's a lot of twists and turns. I think it could have been shorter. I don't think it needed to be as long as it was. There's a lot of stories within the story interwoven in purposefully. They happen kind of when they need to happen for the main story. But 3 and 4 was a struggle between Dominicana and the Starless Sea. Ultimately, I think because of my hang up with Dominicana and the fact that I kind of wanted to see a fantasy book move on, it's why I ended up rating the Starless Sea number 3. It's not a book for everybody. This has been getting mixed reviews for good reason. I haven't read The Night Circus, so I can't compare it to The Night Circus to say, if you love The Night Circus, then you'll probably love this. Or if you hated The Night Circus, I wouldn't read this. I haven't read The Night Circus to be able to give that kind of recommendation. But, I understand the mixed reviews this has been getting. The book I rated number 2, and afterwards, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but after sending my voting, I wondered if I should have rated it number 1, but it moved on anyway. So, and that's Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton. Well, I'm getting major glare back on that one. Boy Swallows Universe is a Australian fiction book. Trent Dalton's an Australian writer. This is his debut book. This has been getting a lot of buzz. It's a crime novel. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting, but from some of the people I heard great things about this book from, I wasn't expecting a crime novel. I'm going to try and get names because I don't have the physical... but it is about a boy. Boy Swallows Universe, about a boy. Surprise. But about a boy named Eli Bell. And it starts with him... I don't remember how old, but I think not quite a teenager. and it goes through a span of his life from then to his late teens, early 20s. But his mom and stepfather are involved in the Australian drug trade, and they his mother ends up in jail, and his stepfather ends up taken away, let's just say, one night. And his brother doesn't speak by choice. And he draws what he wants to say in the air. So there's kind of a magical realism aspect to this with the brother. I didn't think this was going to be this difficult to explain, but ultimately, we go through Eli's life and how that event affects him and his ultimate wanting of retribution for what happened. It is very well written. I did really enjoy it. I didn't quite get the hype on it. I didn't think it was as good as I kept hearing. But I also haven't stopped thinking about this book, which is why I feel like maybe I should have given it the number one spot. And I'll explain why I didn't when I get to my number one book. I'm starting to run short on time. But yeah, that's Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton. Yeah, I'm still thinking about this book. So it ultimately, I think, is better than I originally gave it credit for. And the final book, and the book I rated number one, and has moved on to the quarterfinals, was Patsy by Nicole Dennis Benn. This is a story about a Jamaican woman immigrant who immigrates to America, leaving her daughter behind. Her name is Patsy, title character of the book, and we follow. She leaves Jamaica, leaving her daughter behind. She doesn't really feel that attached to motherhood. She leaves her daughter behind at like 6 years old, I want to say. It's been a while since this was the second book I read. But 6 or 9. I don't know why the number 9 is sticking in my head between these two books. But anyway, so she leaves her daughter behind. Her daughter thinks that her mother is going to make money and send back to her, but she kind of cuts contact with her daughter. She goes because she's hoping to reconnect with the woman she's in love with, who went to America ahead of her. Things don't go as planned, and she ends up and the prosperousness of America wasn't what was promised, so she ends up a struggling Jamaican illegal immigrant. And in this book, we follow her, and then we also follow her daughter back in Jamaica, and her growing up without her mother and with her father that she didn't even really know before her mother left her with him, and her own struggles and sexual awakenings and identity awakenings, and it's a really well told book. Really well told book. The full book is well told. It's a really well told story. I really enjoyed Nicole Dennis Benn's writing. I enjoyed it so much that before I was even 100 pages in, I bought her prior book, which you'll see in my book haul next week. Now, I will say that with my first reactions with it, part of the book didn't continue to live up to that. Like, I kind of got bored with Patsy's story in the book. I think the book could have been a bit shorter. I ended up more interested in her daughter's story back in Jamaica. I kind of was happy when we got to one of those chapters, and then when we were back with Patsy, I was like, I got to go through. I got to get through 25, 30 more pages of Patsy's story, which was important, but not the part of the story I was enjoying the most. I ended up rating this as my top spot because of my initial reaction to it versus my initial reaction to Boy Swallows Universe. I haven't continued to think about this one the way I have continued to think about Boy Swallows Universe. So I probably should have rated Boy Swallows Universe in my number one spot and Patsy in number two, but they were close. I did really enjoy this book. I probably, once I finally do my ratings on Goodreads, I'll probably give both of those 4 stars. And I'm excited to get to her prior book that I picked up for that. But that's it. That's how my thoughts and my ratings for round 1 of the Octofinals, Group F, fiction. I won't be judging rounds 2 and 3, but hopefully I will be judging the final round. Excuse me. I explained in my Friday Reads video, I kind of decided to pull myself from the judge pool for rounds 2 and 3, so I could focus on other things, and work's really busy, and so I wouldn't have to worry about that. But anyway, thank you to let me know too. I always keep forgetting to say, to let me know in the comments and inviting you to comment. Please, always, if you have thoughts, things you want to say, please put them in the comments. Why I started a channel was to interact with other readers and lovers of the things that I love to do and talk about. So please, leave me comments, even just, hey Sean, how you doing? That's fine. If you got nothing to say about one of the books, but if you have read these books and you enjoyed them, or you have different thoughts, or you read this group and you had different thoughts than I have, let me know. I'd love to talk about it. But anyway, thank you to all my subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, welcome. I'm happy you're here. If you have found me because of the Booktube prize, I hope you stick around. I got lots more stuff I want to read and talk about, and I'd love to have you around for it. So please hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to know when I post new videos, and I'll see you all in the next one.